Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Sally Spectra's departure from Genoa City has set the stage for one of the most shocking crossovers in CBS daytime history, a move that fans of The Young and the Restless have been speculating about for months, with whispers of her return to the bold and the beautiful circulating quietly among the backstage corridors and fan forums, creating a buzz that has only intensified as spoilers and hints from actors have begun to surface. The decision for Sally to leave the Abbott Mansion's drama-laden corridors and the twisting paths of Newman Enterprises is not just a simple character shift but a carefully orchestrated narrative pivot designed to shake both soap universes to their core. A move that comes with layers of intrigue, suspense, and the unsettling promise of a horror-infused storyline that CBS has teased in cryptic promotional clips, showing shadows flitting across the Spectra fashion house, distorted reflections in mirrors, and whispers in hallways that suggest the presence of something beyond the ordinary conflicts that have long dominated Sally's world, with viewers left to wonder whether her return to Los Angeles will bring old flames, new betrayals, or a supernatural presence that blurs the line between reality and the macabre. A daring storytelling choice that leverages Sally's established history of ambition, manipulation, and charm to anchor a narrative thread that could redefine the boundaries of daytime drama by infusing it with suspense, psychological terror, and the creeping dread of unknown forces that may be stalking the characters she leaves behind as well as the ones she will encounter, all while the production teams on both shows coordinate to create a seamless integration of her character arc, ensuring that every whispered conversation, every furtive glance, and every unexpected reunion carries the weight of foreboding and anticipation. And as Sally boards her plane back to Los Angeles, the camera lingers on Genoa City's skyline, the sun setting in a fiery blaze that mirrors the tension in her eyes, a symbolic farewell that is at once glamorous, heart-wrenching, and ominous, hinting at the unresolved connection she leaves behind, the lives she touches in subtle but profound ways, and the darkness that may be waiting for her. For even as she steps into the familiar world of Spectra fashion, the corridors of the bold and the beautiful are not merely the backdrop for romance and rivalry, but have become a stage for a creeping horror that has quietly taken root, a malevolent force that seems to know her, perhaps even to anticipate her every move, weaving itself into the narrative in ways that are both visible and hidden, glimpsed only through fleeting shadows, eerie sounds, and moments of unshakable déjà vu that chill the spine. And as she greets familiar faces, Steffi, Hope, Liam, and even Finn, there is a sense that nothing will ever be the same again, for the horror that CBS has teased is not simply about external threats but is deeply psychological, playing on Sally's insecurities, ambitions, and past mistakes, testing her resilience, her moral compass, and her ability to navigate a world where the line between friend and foe is obscured, where every reflection in a glass, every whisper in the wind, and every sudden flicker of light could signal danger. And yet, Sally's innate cunning and survival instincts ensure that she is not merely a victim of circumstance. She is an active participant in a story that promises twists, revelations, and shocking confrontations, and as viewers follow her from Genoa City to Los Angeles, they are drawn into a narrative labyrinth that challenges expectations, blending the familiar soap opera elements of love triangles, corporate espionage, and family secrets with the eerie, suspenseful, and sometimes terrifying elements that are uncharacteristic for daytime television, but exhilarating precisely because of that, creating a hybrid genre experience that elevates both shows, offering longtime fans and new viewers alike a story that is as emotionally gripping as it is unsettling. And in the midst of this narrative upheaval, Sally encounters cryptic messages, mysterious figures, and unexplained events that force her to confront not only external threats but also the darker recesses of her own psyche. With every interaction, from casual conversations to heated confrontations, imbued with tension, a sense of lurking menace, and the potential for life-altering consequences, all while the writing subtly underscores her dual identity as both a beloved soap character and a vehicle for suspenseful storytelling innovation, challenging the audience to reconcile their affection for her familiar charm with the growing dread of the unknown forces that accompany her return. A tension that reaches its apex as she navigates the labyrinthine hallways of the Spectra fashion house, where every door may conceal danger, every mirror may reflect something sinister, and every whispered secret may trigger a chain reaction of events that threaten to engulf not only her world but also the lives of those she holds dear. culminating in a sequence of confrontations and revelations so intricate and chilling that the line between reality and supernatural horror becomes nearly impossible to discern, ensuring that viewers are gripped from the moment of her arrival, through every twist and turn of the unfolding storyline, until the narrative's climax, where Sally's courage, wit, and resourcefulness are pitted against a horror that is as psychological as it is visceral. As familiar characters reveal hidden agendas, alliances shift unexpectedly, and the ominous presence hinted at in early teasers finally makes its mark, leaving an indelible impression on both YNR and BNB fans, and redefining the narrative potential for future crossover events and suspense-driven story arcs. And as the story progresses, it becomes clear that Sally's journey is about more than just relocation or romantic entanglements. It is an exploration of fear, resilience, and identity, a tapestry of intrigue and suspense that tests the very foundations of the interconnected soap universes while keeping audiences on the edge of their seats, hearts racing and imaginations ignited, cementing her return not merely as a plot device but as a transformative narrative catalyst whose impact will reverberate through both series, ensuring that the stakes are higher, the emotions more intense, and the mysteries far more unsettling than anything previously encountered in daytime drama. As Sally stepped off the private jet onto the sun-drenched tarmac of Los Angeles, the familiar skyline of the city shimmered under the golden afternoon light, yet there was a strange, almost imperceptible unease in the air, as if the city itself had changed during her absence, and as she navigated the sleek streets toward the Spectra mansion, the usually comforting familiarity of her surroundings now seemed fraught with shadows that shifted at the edge of her vision, fleeting figures that appeared and disappeared, the distant echo of footsteps in empty corridors, and the subtle scent of something unfamiliar yet unsettlingly familiar, signaling that her return would not be a simple reconnection with old allies and rivals, but an initiation into a sequence of events that would challenge her courage, intuition, and even her sense of reality. Inside the Spectra fashion house, the ambient lighting created elongated shadows along the walls, and as she was greeted by the ever-determined Steffi Forrester, whose elegance could mask anything but whose eyes betrayed a flicker of curiosity tinged with apprehension, Sally felt the first real pangs of foreboding, realizing that her friends and rivals alike carried knowledge, secrets, and hidden motives that might intersect with forces she could not yet comprehend, and even before she had a chance to fully reacquaint herself, she sensed that someone or something was watching her from the shadows, an unshakable presence that followed her from room to room, leaving fleeting impressions on her mind that alternated between subtle unease and visceral terror, a creeping sensation that what she had once considered the world of cutthroat fashion and family drama had been infiltrated by a layer of menace entirely outside her previous experience, and as she moved through familiar rooms adorned with the trappings of past triumphs and conflicts, she began noticing details that had previously gone unnoticed. A mirror, reflecting a figure that vanished when she turned, a set of footprints in dust where no one had been, the inexplicable creak of floorboards in areas supposedly abandoned, and the chilling whispers that seemed to echo from walls themselves, as though the mansion had absorbed secrets and grudges over decades and now chose her as the conduit through which they would manifest. In the meantime, her interactions with the Forrester family, while outwardly cordial, revealed subtle shifts in dynamics, with Hope's smiles tinged with nervousness, Finn's polite attentiveness carrying a hidden tension, and Liam's charm occasionally faltering under a weight he did not disclose, each exchange layered with subtext that Sally, despite her keen instincts and long experience navigating deceit, found difficult to decipher, as if the world around her had become a riddle where motives and allegiances were obscured not only by human complexity but by an intangible, almost supernatural influence that seemed to distort perception and memory, leaving her questioning whether the anomalies she observed were hallucinations, the product of stress, or evidence of something truly sinister encroaching upon her life. A psychological maze that would force her to confront fears she did not know she harbored and to reconcile past mistakes with present dangers in ways that would redefine her character for viewers across both soap operas, blending the suspense-driven elements of horror with the traditional emotional intensity of daytime drama. Meanwhile, back in Genoa City, those she left behind were not unaffected, as whispers of Sally's departure sparked intrigue and anxiety among the Newmans, Abbotts, and others whose lives had intersected with hers, with each character reacting according to their own ambitions and vulnerabilities. Whether Nick Abbott's protective instincts flared with worry about potential threats in Los Angeles, Phyllis Newman's calculating mind speculating on the ramifications of Sally's reemergence in a rival fashion empire, or Sharon Collins' quiet concern that her own entanglements might inadvertently pull her into unforeseen dangers, thereby creating a ripple effect of tension that linked both cities in a narrative thread that was both psychologically gripping and emotionally resonant, as audiences were invited to consider not only Sally's personal journey, but also the wider implications of her actions, decisions, and the ominous undercurrents she had unwittingly unleashed. Sally's early days back at the Spectra mansion quickly revealed that the horror lurking beneath the glamorous surface was not merely metaphorical, as she encountered increasingly bizarre phenomena that challenged her sense of causality and safety. Portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her movements, drafts that carried whispers of unfinished business, phones that rang with static-filled messages and voices she thought she recognized, and sudden unexplained cold spots that made her breath visible indoors, each occurrence layering a tension that merged with her pre-existing anxieties about professional competition, romantic entanglements, and familial loyalty, compelling her to adopt strategies she had never needed before, from careful surveillance to psychological probing, in order to navigate a world where the line between reality and illusion was perilously thin, and where every decision, whom to trust, where to go, how to respond, could have consequences not only for her personal survival but for the fate of those around her. As she delved into these mysteries, the narrative introduced elements that were at once classic soap opera intrigue and uncanny horror, including cryptic notes left in her office, anonymous messages suggesting that her presence had awakened forces dormant for decades, and confrontations with figures from her past whose intentions were ambiguous, their dialogue often layered with double meanings, veiled threats, and subtle manipulations that kept both Sally and the audience perpetually off balance, creating a psychological tension that mirrored the physical tension present in the haunted corridors and shifting shadows, a careful orchestration by the writers to immerse viewers in a story that was as unpredictable as it was compelling, blending suspense, emotional drama, and supernatural overtones in a way that had rarely been attempted in daytime television, ensuring that every moment, from a seemingly innocuous encounter in the cafeteria to a late-night confrontation in the design studio, carried the potential for revelation, shock, or terror, and as Sally navigated these perils, she drew upon the full range of her experiences, intelligence, and charm, employing subtle manipulation, strategic alliances, and psychological insight to discern truth from illusion, ally from adversary, and danger from coincidence, all while maintaining the persona that audiences had come to love: ambitious, assertive, witty, and emotionally complex. A character whose journey could anchor both traditional soap elements and the experimental horror-infused storyline, and whose every choice had consequences that rippled outward, affecting the Forrester family, rival fashion houses, romantic entanglements, and even the unseen forces that appeared increasingly capable of influencing the environment itself, from slamming doors to flickering lights, from whispered threats to inexplicable accidents that seemed orchestrated by an intelligent, malevolent presence, gradually revealing that the narrative's horror elements were not simply random scares but deliberate psychological trials intended to challenge, provoke, and transform Sally, ensuring that her story was both deeply personal and universally compelling, while simultaneously bridging two long-running soap universes in a shared arc of suspense, tension, and terror that captivated fans across the country, enticing them to follow every twist, every moment of suspense, and every revelation with rapt attention. Because the consequences of Sally's return were unpredictable, the threats both human and otherworldly, and the outcomes capable of redefining not only her life but the narrative landscape of daytime television itself. As Sally delved deeper into the intricate labyrinth of the Spectra mansion, every familiar corner seemed to have transformed into a site of latent danger and hidden secrets, the polished floors reflecting elongated shadows that moved independently of her own, the lights flickering at odd intervals as if signaling the presence of a sentient force, and even the air seemed charged with a subtle electricity, prickling her skin with an almost imperceptible awareness that she was no longer merely navigating a world of fashion rivalries and romantic entanglements but a space haunted by the unresolved past, a past that seemed determined to confront her with a relentless persistence that blurred the boundaries between memory, fear, and reality. As she encountered Steffi in the design studio, their conversation initially centered on mundane matters, the upcoming fashion showcase, deadlines, and potential collaborations. But beneath the surface, An unspoken tension hung in the air. A sense that Steffi was aware of phenomena Sally had not yet processed, that she understood threats both tangible and intangible, and that her apparent calmness masked an internal struggle to maintain composure while acknowledging the creeping horror around them, which was echoed in the subtle expressions of Hope, whose bright smile seemed to tremble at the edges, and Finn, whose measured words carried an undertone of unease, his analytical mind unable to ignore the inexplicable occurrences that were manifesting around Sally, while Liam, whose natural charm often disarmed tension, appeared uncharacteristically guarded, his eyes darting to corners of the room where nothing seemed to be, and the combined effect of their reactions made Sally realize that the mansion itself, or perhaps something inhabiting it, was exerting a psychological pressure that influenced even the most rational minds, shaping behavior, perception, and decisions in ways that were both subtle and unnerving, a realization that intensified her vigilance and forced her to reconsider every interaction, every choice of movement, and every whispered conversation as potentially fraught with consequences far beyond the ordinary stakes of business rivalry or romantic miscommunication. As the nights grew longer and shadows deepened, Sally began experiencing phenomena that were increasingly impossible to rationalize. Footsteps echoing in hallways when no one was present, doors opening and closing without cause, whispered voices just beyond comprehension, and fleeting glimpses of figures whose forms seemed fluid, shifting between the familiar and the grotesque, each manifestation pushing her psychological resilience to its limits and forcing her to confront memories and regrets she had long suppressed, creating a tension that was both personal and narrative in scale, intertwining her internal struggles with the external threats of a storyline that CBS had promised would redefine horror within the daytime soap genre. During one particularly tense evening, she found herself alone in the private study, the room bathed in a dim, flickering light that made the corners appear impossibly deep, when she noticed a series of photographs arranged meticulously on the mahogany desk, images from both her past in Genoa City and her early days at Spectra, yet subtly altered in ways that defied explanation, faces twisted in expressions she had never captured, eyes appearing to follow her with an intensity that sent chills down her spine, and the realization dawned that someone or something was sending her messages through these curated images, a cryptic code that challenged her intelligence, perception, and emotional fortitude simultaneously, compelling her to decode their meaning while navigating the creeping sense of menace that had begun to invade every aspect of her waking life, from casual encounters in the hallways to moments of reflection in her private quarters. In the midst of these disturbances, Sally's interactions with the Forrester family grew increasingly complex, layered with intrigue and subtle manipulation. As Steffi alternated between overt friendliness and guarded caution, Hope attempted to provide emotional support while harboring secrets of her own that intersected with the malevolent forces surrounding Sally, and Finn, whose medical expertise and analytical approach made him both a stabilizing presence and a source of tension, struggled to reconcile rational explanations with the increasingly surreal events that defied logic, while Liam's protective instincts led him to shadow Sally in moments when she least expected it, creating a dynamic that oscillated between camaraderie, suspicion, and latent fear, a microcosm of the broader narrative tension that CBS had meticulously designed, blending traditional soap opera relationships with a psychological and supernatural horror layer that challenged the genre's conventions and captivated viewers with its unpredictability, suspense, and emotional intensity. Meanwhile, the mansion itself seemed to evolve in response to Sally's presence, hallways elongating, shadows deepening, and rooms subtly shifting their configuration, as if the architecture were imbued with a consciousness that both reflected and manipulated the fears and desires of those within, and the interplay between physical environment and psychological tension became a central motif, demonstrating that the horror in this storyline was not simply external but inextricably linked to the characters' inner lives, forcing Sally to confront unresolved traumas, past betrayals, and latent fears, while simultaneously grappling with the professional and personal stakes that had always defined her presence in daytime drama, thus creating a narrative richness that rewarded both character-driven exploration and suspenseful plot progression. One night, in an episode that blurred the line between reality and nightmare, Sally discovered an old journal tucked behind a loose panel in the design studio, its pages filled with cryptic entries that chronicled events and observations eerily parallel to her own experiences, from shadows moving independently to voices speaking in half-formed sentences. And as she read through the journal, she felt an uncanny resonance, a sense that the author had known her, understood her, and perhaps even anticipated her return, with each entry amplifying her awareness of a force that was patient, intelligent, and singularly focused on shaping her journey in ways that were both terrifying and inevitable, forcing her to question the reliability of her own senses, the nature of time and causality, and the distinction between ally and adversary. For the journal hinted at betrayals, revelations, and encounters that had not yet occurred, suggesting